Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining Bob and I today on UDTV. Our commitment is to journey with you and ask questions and seek the truth about how, as people living with diabetes, we can transform our lives from common to uncommon. Today is going to be a candid and personal discussion with Bob about how we can manage our personal mindset when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. After all, life is a full contact sport. Quickly, before we get started, I need to remind you that the content we discuss on UDTV is provided for information and education purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for medical, psychological, or any other professional advice. So remember to check with your doctor and healthcare professionals before you make any changes to your routines. So let's jump into the deep end and discuss our mental health and how change and uncertainty create stress in life for us all. Through the last year or two, COVID-19's pandemic has really been an impact on all of us. How are you coping? Have you had your personal life touched? I think we would all agree that we are in a time of change that has never been seen by most of us, a time of uncertainty that I am sure has impacted you directly. How has it impacted you? How about your family and friends, your occupation, recreation, or just simply your motivation? Has your form of life been altered? Well, mine definitely has. On top of the pandemic, there are areas and people around the world that get impacted by other uncontrollable stressors. For example, where I live in the Fraser Valley in the province of BC in Canada, we were just hit by a 100-year storm. That has put us into a provincial state of emergency with highways and infrastructure destroyed by flooding, food and fuel shortages, no ability to travel with almost all major highways, railways closed by washouts and mudslides. People have had their lives transformed overnight and are just feeling overwhelmed by life. And even in these times of uncertainty, I believe that everything, even the biggest challenges, are actually happening for us. They are opportunities to embrace if we choose to. The truth is that change and uncertainty is the only thing really certain in life. So if you have been in out of the blue suddenly hit, or you're gradually been hit by a relationship, work, financial, or maybe even a health challenge like diabetes, we have a choice in how we respond to it. So today, Bob and I are going to go and do a deep dive into how we can control our state of mind and life when we're feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, and totally out of control. Bob, I am really excited today about you and I diving deep and having a great chat about how stress and the feeling of just being overwhelmed impacts us all. How are you doing today, Bob?
Good, buddy. Good. Thanks for inviting me on. There was a great comic back in the 70s or the 80s that was like the Cracked magazine. What was that other magazine? There was Alfred E. Newman said, "What, me worry?" I think that was his slogan. So I think maybe that's a good a good slogan to have in these stressful times. What, me worry?
I love that, Bob. That's so amazing. It's something that my dad used to always say to me, if something is happening, you have a choice, right? And if you can't do anything about it, why worry about it? If you can do something about it, then don't worry about it. Do something, right? And that is the hardest challenge, is that quite often in uncertain times, we just aren't quite sure what to do.
Yeah, that's right. I
You
think there's a serenity prayer too.
know,
I'm not sure if you know the serenity prayer. That's God grant me the wisdom to change the things I can and leave the things I can't alone. Okay, that's
yeah,
a shortened version of the serenity prayer, but folks, look it up. It's a good one. It's like
yeah.
knowing what you can change and knowing what you can't change gives you great serenity.
Well, as I shared at the beginning here, we're in a real time that we've never seen in our life that I can remember of uncertainty here. And has there been anything that you've been feeling or you've been feeling impacted by? I know I will share. What are your thoughts on this whole pandemic and our circumstance here in BC and what others are dealing with? Do you have
This really
anything?
is the serenity prayer and what me worry slogans together, my friend. I'm not doing anything about the pandemic. I'm not doing anything about government regulations. I don't have any control about those things. I really don't. All I have control about are my actions each and every day. And for me, there is a lot of stress. I mean, businesses change radically. My ability to reach out to people has changed dramatically. My ability to contact new clients has changed dramatically. You know, things have changed. But we've you and I have been through this many times before. It's not like things haven't changed when you were 20 or when you were 30 or you were 40, right? I remember when you got diabetes for the first time, and met you just after that, and all the changes you've gone through in business and with the diabetes and in your relationships, your kid. You went from having no kids to one child to seeing him grow up and thrive. Massive changes there as well, right?
Yeah.
Both you and I've got the 3 kids on the go. So life change is part of life, and it's the what really helps me each and every day is the willingness to accept the change. So, I woke up this morning happy. I was in bed. I took a few minutes just to get myself organized in my head, and there was nothing but goodness today. Nothing but goodness. I got a workout in the afternoon. I've got the food plan for the day. I've got my priorities in a row. And there has been big challenges already today, but each one's been met. And that is one of the truths about life too, is as long as you face challenge head on, face change head on, and do what you can, do the best you can, take your best step forward, we're in a good position. So, in
Yeah.
answer to your question, I'm doing well. There is massive change. There is all sorts of things trying to put stress on me, but I refuse to let it happen by being organized, by knowing what I'm doing, by setting my priorities, by frankly knowing what my mission is. And I'd like to talk to you about that in a few minutes.
Yeah. I think what I just heard you say ultimately, though, is it starts with an attitude of gratitude, despite the circumstances that we're all experiencing, right? This year for me has been a lot of change. And like you, I just decided we're not going to let the pandemic impact us. Like the blessings I've had in this year. One, I started the year with a bang. I got married to my Susan. From there, I ended 2020 with just the most amazing gift and blessing in this, and that's my grandson Weston, and the change and the addition to my family, and then Susan and our marriage, and then us launching UD and our solutions here to help empower people living with and impacted by diabetes. Business, and I have a lot of experience with starting businesses and growing them. It's stressful, especially at the beginning. To create that momentum in life on anything takes more energy to get it started, to create that initial inertia to create and drive something forward, right? And I think that's what you were alluding to there. But ultimately, I love what you just said. You wake up happy because you choose it, to focus on the blessings that we have. What do we have to be grateful for? We can't be worried and angry and fearful if we're being grateful. What's your thoughts on that, Bob?
You're absolutely right, Heath. I think one of the blessings that we have is like you're in your 50s, I'm in my 60s, is we've been through a lot of this stuff before. And I would encourage anybody listening or viewing right now that are in their 20s, teens or 20s, is that this life is a process and you will overcome with a good heart and good steps. Sometimes life is rocky, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's very challenging. A lot of times you don't end up where you want to end up, but at the end of the day, you do prevail. So you and I have been through these types of challenges before, so we know all we have to do is take good action,
Yeah.
put our best foot forward, work hard, right? Partner with people that will support us. We know that if we do some basic fundamental things, that by simply moving ourselves forward, that we get through this. We get through the pandemic, we get through business trials, we get through health issues, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, I'm thinking of Forrest right now. Forrest Gump and his words of wisdom, right? And that is that life is a box of chocolates and you just never know which one you're going to get. You know, so if we're able to accept and acknowledge what is, where you and I are at right now, and just look at the grateful things in it, right? It's real help. However, we also need to acknowledge the fact that what we're feeling is valid. When we're stressed and we're anxious, these are valid feelings. And what I'd like to really know is, how do we address these feelings around stress and that feeling of being overwhelmed? So what kind of things are impacting us and contributing to the stress, do you think, Bob? Do you think it could be those feelings of aging, just a loss of ability, physical strength, or the fact that we're just not what we used to be, or we're gaining weight, or we're noticing overall that we're fatigued, we're depressed, we're struggling in so many areas in life? What do you think are the primary causes of stress?
Well, I think you were right when you said the stress is the feelings of being stressed. That's a legitimate feeling, and there's no doubt about it. One of the things I've learned over the years is when you feel that pressure, it's really your body, your brain's natural reaction to fear, your brain's natural reaction to protect you. So, as we will talk about in the future, the brain's divided up into three major sections, and we have something right at the back of our heads here called the reptilian brain or primitive brain, and that brain control part of the brain controls our fear and also controls protects us. So
Fight or flight.
fight or flight, exactly. So if we feel that we don't have enough money, that part of the brain is ringing bells, and that bell ringing has an effect in your brain, of course, but also in your body. So you might feel sick to your stomach. You might feel worried. You might feel depressed. You might feel anxious, right? It affects our whole body. And it's a powerful part of our brain. It's a reflexive part of the brain. So if there's not enough money, or we're worried about being laid off, or our relationships are not going well, or we've just been diagnosed with diabetes, right? Or any one of those, anything that actually is bringing that stress on. This is a totally natural function of that primitive part of our brains to try to protect us. Now, the answer to that is to take action. So while your brain is warning you, right, by making you feel this way, I'm sick to my stomach. For whatever reason, that's a signal that we should do something, whatever's within our power. And that's where you get out of the primitive part of your brain and into the frontal lobe, the neocortex, where you start to logically rationalize out what you can do. So the primitive part creates emotions, and then you got to get into that logical part of your thinking process to say, what action can I take in this particular situation that will help me move me forward? And it's figuring that out plus actually taking the action that moves us forward. If we don't take that action, if we just worry about it, your body will keep screaming at you till you move.
So well said. You know, what that kind of just leads to the very real essence, though, of stress and anxiety and worry, and all these things are really just fruit of the main issue, the elephant in the room. And you said it already, and that's fear. And I truly believe, to take action that you're saying that we need to do, we first got to identify, in my mind, what is fear? Who is the enemy? So for me, fear is just false evidence or events appearing real. Fear is a lie. It's like a cloud, when or a fog is a better one. We're driving down the road, and then all of a sudden you hit a bank of fog and you just don't even know where the road is. And if you allow emotions to get involved, what happens? Oh, I got to swerve. I got to change. You start to do things that you don't know are real. But the truth is, if you just take a deep breath, You know where you were headed before you hit the fog, and you begin to slow down, but you hold true to the path you were on. And then when you come out of the fog, the road is still there. Everything didn't disappear in reality, but that on the other side of the fog is where everything really is. So
let me just interject there for a sec, bud. I agree with that, but this and many of our viewers will relate to this. That is not an easy process, and I'll tell you why. When we start to fear, our brain secretes powerful chemicals, and our emotions automatically kick in, and then that middle part of our brain is called the limbic system, which houses most of our emotion, kicks in too, and they secrete more chemicals. These are powerful as a powerful reaction to that fear. It actually there's a physical barrier put up between your limbic system and your reptilian brain, separating you from your neocortex, from your logical linear thinking. So what you alluded to is you can go into the fog bank, which is where the chemicals are being released. But to get out of the fog bank to a clear process where you can actually think about things clearly without the emotions and without the fear is a very difficult thing on your own. So this is where it really helps to have good, sound counsel around, to have people in proximity that you can talk to, where they can actually help you access that linear thinking, which might be it's the fog bank. It's the fog bank. You will be in the fog. Some people stay in the fog for years. You know this.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Get out of it. They're so set in their emotions and their fear, they can't move in a good direction.
So, I can honestly say, in my life, I've experienced fear in a lot of different forms and shapes. One, as an ex-police officer, I've experienced real live fear in the sense of life and death. I've seen it in myself and I've seen it in others. And we all know people that when fear hits them, it just controls them and they become not able to function. And then we see others that are able to actually slow things down and take that little pause, and because they've learned through others techniques that work. And I think it might be really good to just talk a smidgen about what types of stressors there are in our life and where this fear really comes from. That can be our physical, it can be mental, emotional stress. That's the one that we mostly talk about. It can also be environmental, right? And it can be social, the people, as you talked about, proximity that we're around. And all five of these are what drive those emotions, that drive that fear, or the contributors into the fear. And I think that the reason I bring this in, this is science proven through, PhD work by Dr. Sean Richardson and others, that help us realize that if we are able to at least acknowledge that what we're feeling is valid, we can accept it, that awareness of what's happening. And this all happens in a microsecond. That's when we can actually take a pause, whether it be just a micro deep breath, to allow that separation, to allow us to take an affirmative action forward in that. Would you agree with that concept based on what you're talking about?
Oh, 100%, 100%. But also, like, and you'll I think you'll find, well, I'd like to hear your opinion on this too, is that stress comes in two forms: healthy stress and unhealthy stress.
True.
So almost all, like, I woke up this morning, I have a very busy day, a very full day. There's a ton of stress in today, right? There's timed events, things that I have to produce, et cetera, et cetera. But most of that's terrific stress. It makes me be on my game. It helps me produce excellence. So when I look at stress, I look at most stress being very, very healthy, very productive. It makes me take action. It makes me think creatively. It makes me innovate. It makes me produce at a high level. So I love stress. I welcome stress. There is unhealthy stress, and I wouldn't even say dealing with a relationship. So I've been married for 27 years now, and I would say that there's times in my relationship with my wife that is very difficult, but that's not necessarily very comfortable too. So, but I wouldn't even say that's unhealthy stress. That helps me think through what I'm going to do to make the relationship better. How am I going to solve this
Yeah.
challenge? And so that's not unhealthy stress. I think that unhealthy stress comes when we're lost in the fog, when we don't take action, when we can't take action. Um, yeah, when we can't take action. So I remember, when you first were diagnosed with a diabetic as a
Yeah.
diabetic, that's a massive thing that you had no control over, losing the function of your pancreas, right?
Yeah.
The near death experience that went with that, and that would last then for months, right? That those
Yeah.
feelings of
Yeah.
helplessness, of of
Anger,
hurt,
frustration, worry.
frustration, right?
Yeah.
Disappointment, losing everything that you lost, right? All that
Yeah.
physical fitness and energy, and having to recalibrate your life. I think that's a perfect example of stress that's been forced upon you and becomes potentially very unhealthy.
Well,
And
I think what you've just done, you must have been reading my mind, is, for our viewers that are watching that are living with diabetes, the reason we were talking at the high level about stress is it impacts all areas. That's the 5 areas I just talked about of our life that impact us. But the physical side of being a diabetic, that stress is very real. Preparing for today's show as an example, I'm having to do a blood test beforehand to make sure that my sugars are there, because I love the stress of us doing this show, right? But it creates and triggers the same processes that go on if I'm out training in my gym, or I'm in a fight or flight moment. The body only knows the systems that it uses, such as cortisol, such as adrenaline, such as, increase the heart rate. These systems all happen. So, as you said, if we're able to know what stress it is and we're able to take action on it, knowing how to do it. So, with me, as you mentioned, as a diabetic, how do I manage stress when I'm feeling out of control physically? My blood sugar is here, it's too low, I got to get it going up. Well, it's always back to our routines, the things that we're learning. And I'm a routine mantra guy, because it really has transformed my life learning these things. So I always have apple juice or something that is there for me or close by. And it doesn't matter if I'm hiking, I'm sitting at home, I make sure I've prepared for what could happen. Right? That chance favors a prepared mind, because I can make a mistake. I can miscalculate. I can forget to take a shot. I could overdo my insulin amount by accidentally double entering a bolus. I've done all of these, by the way. And so the fact that I have it available is a learned response. I may not need it, which is usually what happens when you have it. So stress as a whole is, first, we got to acknowledge that it exists. 2, that it's valid. And then 3, what can we do, as you've been pushing, about it to relieve it, to reduce it, or in the worst case, just manage it and put ourselves in a state of control over it. And as a diabetic, losing control of our sugars affects our head, our thinking, our mindset, our attitude, our emotions. It affects our heart. I mean, physically affects our heart. The up and down of blood pressure, the rapid pulsing if we're getting low blood sugars, to cold sweats, to all it may be. This is real physical stress, which then creates emotional stress, right? And mental stress. So, and all of that combined, the actions we need to do is really try to create these routines. So, what have you, 1, done for your own life? And 2, what have you observed in me that you think are effective techniques that we can actually share with our listeners, as you are impacted by diabetes? Because as a friend of mine through my whole diabetic journey, What have you witnessed and observed that we could really pass on to our viewers and our listeners on managing stress that you've observed in me? And then I can share some others.
Well, I think that as human beings, given that life is stressful, given that situations we do every day or have stress, and there's positive and negative stress, one of the very intentional things we can do is to make sure that we meet our needs on a daily and weekly basis. So I learned back in the 80s from reading Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And he'd done a massive amount of research on what makes people feel that they've been successful in life. That he found people lived successfully by meeting their needs on a weekly basis. So as an example, I've got a need for mental stimulation, but I've also got a need for physical activity. So what am I going to do this week that stimulates me mentally? What am I going to do this week that makes sure that I get enough activity in as well? And it's that balance of, and this is just one example, Heath, and you do this exceptionally well. It's that balance of mental activity and physical activity that meet in the middle and really help make us feel excellent. So if we miss the mental stimulation, there's a gap there, there's a gap there. And if we don't get exercise during the week, there's a gap there as well. So it's this way in all the human needs. It's this way, and you maybe you can speak a bit on this, or the list of 6 major human needs, right? As an example, another
I'd
human
love to.
is the feeling of significance and or contribution. 2 different needs there.
Yeah.
But if those needs aren't, if you're not feeling significant, there's a gap there. If you're not contributing to something, there's a gap there. So what action you take varies from person to person and situation to situation. I mean, I had a cousin once, just got out of a relationship. Then she started to, it was Christmas time, and I said, what are you doing? And she says, I'm volunteering down at the Salvation Army, and I'm feeding the homeless. And I thought, what a terrific, here's a lady that was in crisis, a broken relationship, in crisis, like massive stress in her life. And what she was doing is take direct action to go help others. And she felt great. She was dealing with that stress by taking action, by helping others, contributing and feeling significant, right? Bolstering 2 major needs she had, while dealing much better with that stress in her life.
True. And I will take that opportunity. So the things that have drive me in my day-to-day life, if I'm 100% transparent with everybody, is that significance and certainty, right? But let me just quickly list the 4 primal needs that all of us meet in everything we do, in everything we feel. The first, and these aren't in order of priority, they're unique to each of us, but it's certainty, that's safety, that's control, that's the understanding. The opposite of that, the paradox, is uncertainty or variety, that feeling of needing of adventure, as Bob said, that these are critical for everybody. The third being significance, that's respect, and that people would think that, we're all good enough at whatever it is that we're doing in our job, or if we're athletes, that we're doing a good job. The last is connection, that love that we get from our relationships. Those are 4 primal needs. And I know that if you ask yourself and you think about the things that we do every day, it's either positively building up to meet that need, or it's tearing it down. It's being constructive, or it's being destructive, the fulfillment of that need. It's like my son when he was young. If I wasn't able to give him the time and the attention he needed in a specific moment, when he came up and was being all loving, it's funny how very, very shortly after, that feeling of rejection or missing out would be an outlay of emotions that definitely got my attention. So he felt significant, that he was important in the moment. He always tried to do it constructively and in love, but when that's not met, he would go to the destructive to get his attention and his significance need met. I can share truthfully that I do it every day if I am honest with where I'm at. So I think us looking at those 4 primal needs is critical. But you mentioned contribution and growth. These are our fulfillment needs, and they're critical for the longevity of life. It's like cooking with blue flame with those primal needs, and that nice slow cook that always brings fulfillment. And it's through progress, which happens through giving and growing. So that's important. I think it leads us to where we need to go with this discussion, Bob, that I'm most curious about on stress and controlling it is, we believe in our programs that there's 4 pillars, and 4 pillars that build the foundations of our life. That takes everything from our mindset, to our nutrition, to our exercise and movement, which you already addressed, and right into our energy, that recovery that we need to allow ourselves. And all of these pillars can be used to meet our needs. So can you expand on that with us? And let's talk a little bit about, for all of us living with diabetes, how important is it? We're going to get those needs met, those emotional needs we just talked about met. I believe that we can meet all of them by using these 4 pillars, which will not only that, give us health, which is the crown that only the sick can see.
The 4 pillars are amazingly important in any human's life, right? But they're all active, they're all action based.
Yeah.
So the first pillar, mindset and intention, is really the fundamental thought that, I'm 62 right now. The average Canadian dies at about 82 years old. So I've got 20 more years left on the planet, statistically, right? My dad died at 70, and I'm 62. That's 8 years. So I have to take that into account.
Yeah.
So maybe I have up to 20 years left, but mindset is really about being intentional with those 20 years, and what are you going to do in those 20 years? One of the big causes of stress is not taking action, not being intentional, letting yourself be caught in your emotional and primitive brain, and being in the fog, leaving yourself in the fog. One of the traps in our society is things that we do that take time away from us, that have no use or negative use in our life. They actually cause stress to us. And I would say that being on Twitter, being on Facebook, being on Instagram, by the way, we're on all those things, aren't we?
Yeah, we're on all those things, but we do try very hard to monitor the amount of time, because it does. I agree. It does stress me out.
Sitting in front of the TV, doing activities which don't provide you an opportunity to be significant or to contribute, take time away from you, and keep you in the fog, keep you in the stress, in the negative stress. It's almost impossible to be depressed and full of anxiety if you are feeding the homeless. You're busy. Like if you're out there feeding the homeless on a Sunday and putting out food and meeting new people and helping them and getting the smiles you get back from that, it's impossible to be depressed or have anxiety, I believe, during that time, because the chemicals that are being released in your brain of giving to others are just so strong and powerful. There's basically nothing but happiness that comes from that particular activity. So, but it's getting up off the couch, right? Making the call to the Salvation Army and actually getting your butt down there on the Sunday to do it. That's the hard part for people, because of the lure of Facebook, the lure of the TV, and there's chemicals being released when you're just sitting there feeling sorry for yourself. It's the facts.
So am I hearing you say then that one of the key elements or actions we can take for the pillar 1, uncommon sense, our mindset and intention, is to be really clear on what we're putting into our mind? The 7, into our head, I'm going to say, is a better way of putting it. The 7 portals of proximity, right? 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth, and then our feeling as well of the skin. But the fact is, social media or anything that we're putting in impacts our emotional feelings about ourselves, about others. So garbage in, garbage out. And this applies to actually pillar 2, right?
Mhm.
And how does stress get impacted by our nutrition? You know, if we're wanting to kill stress, I know me drinking more coffee actually isn't going to help me relax.
Mhm.
It gets me going in the morning. But if I'm stressed and I keep drinking the coffee, I get the jits. I get those jitters. Versus if I have a nice glass of cold water, or my wife makes this amazing lemon tea. I can't believe the difference in my energy and the response that happens to me by hydration alone.
Yeah. And the mistake people make is they don't recognize, again, we're living life week by week, getting our needs met. I think that's almost proven fact now.
Yeah.
At least that makes logical sense. So you need to get enough exercise during the week. You need to do enough stuff of significance during the week too. And this really goes back to the habits that we have. So if we are spending, and many Canadians spend 20, 30 hours in front of a screen on during their recreational time per week, right? That
Yeah.
means we're not spending that 20 or 30 hours or whatever it is doing something that makes us feel good, that improves our sense of self, right? It doesn't make us more competent in something. And that really has a massive impact on our self-esteem and self-worth. And a lot of people try this, like they try to get out of where they're at. Like I'm constantly at a battle myself with keeping fit and reducing and keeping at a healthy weight. This is a massive challenge for me. Um, so this is a big battle. Um, it's really important that I have a schedule of activity and that I intentionally shop for myself, that I intentionally plan the meals, right? That's in an intentional way. So that's me taking control, identifying those values and those things that I want to achieve, and then being intentional and putting it in my calendar. So there's 168 hours in a week, and there are. How many hours am I going to devote to exercise, to being healthy, to being fit, to be the fit level that I want? Heath, let me ask you that question, and I want to continue my rant. What would be logic? What would be a logical amount of activity that you'd want in a 168-hour week?
Well, I can talk from the bottom end. It's very simple. It's 15 minutes a day is what you should be doing at the minimum, right? If you're wanting to be able to be healthy and just maintain health. The real truth is, if you want to have an uncommon performance, you need to be around the 3 hours a week in that type of an area. Why? And I'm not talking about 3 hours in one go. I try to do 30 minutes a day.
That's good. So 30 minutes a day times 7 is 6. Well, how many is that? 3.5 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. And then you do other activity too. You walk and
100%.
stuff, right?
Yep.
So how many hours total do you think?
Oh, I'm myself, I'm probably around 10 to some weeks 20 hours, but 10 would be a minimum
Yeah.
amount of time that I would spend doing it. And it's, for me, it's not even an option. It's a must for me,
I
because
know.
it literally transforms my mindset. It clears out my head. I get my most creative thoughts when I'm out on my walks, or I'm out playing golf, or if I go into the gym. And it can be just a home workout. It could be going to the gym. But that interaction with myself and burning the energy changes the chemistry within my body. I change my state just by getting up, doing 10 push-ups. It's that easy.
So I
Anyway,
think
so
this,
yeah,
I think this is a powerful discussion because of the numbers. It's like there's 168 hours in a week. We live our lives week to
our
week.
buckets.
If you want to reduce stress, right, you need to be aware of those hours. So and you need to portion them out and schedule them out according to what's important to you in your life. So I agree. I think it's around 10 to 15 hours a week that you need to be active. And some of
Correct.
it intense workouts, like I want to be fit, right? So I'm on my bike for an hour and a half at least twice a week in the summertime, and often 4 times a week, where the heart rates, and again, numbers, right? The heart rate gets up to 150 to 160 during certain moments. So I have a certain level of fitness. That's really important to me. But there's also just the casual walks too, playing golf, which is really a slacker sport. Wouldn't you agree, Heath? Don't
Yeah,
answer that.
it is totally a slacker sport.
No physical activity there.
That's
Oh,
right. I don't
okay,
know. I don't know.
okay.
Do I look like I'm a
No,
slacker?
it's
You know,
playing a game of golf is like running a 10Ks. So that's a lot of activity in golf.
well, hold it. That depends. You can do it as short as 7 if
Uh-huh.
you're a straight line, very good golfer. If you're like me or
I
a
have a
lot of the
12.
guys I play golf with,
I have a
unfortunately, it
12.
is about 10 kilometers because you're going left, you're going right. But here's the point I think that you really hit. And what you're saying is we need to plan. If we don't plan, or I'll put it in my little saying way, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It does not matter. And the fact is that planning, a lot of people look at it as this big thing. It's fun if you actually lay out and say, I'm going to put these big rocks into my week, as you're really hitting on, right? What are the big rocks? And what I love about you, it's always getting some form of activity in every day. And you make sure that you do a pre-meal or something to fuel your body properly for it. And you make sure you always bring water along. You're not bringing
Gatorade. No Gatorade.
Well, yeah, there are certain times in extreme weather, hot,
That's
and
true.
things like that, where you need it for the electrolytes and the salts, etc. Right? But just the sea salt sprinkle in your water will turbocharge you. It will literally create more energy. So I think, though, what we're really saying, to deal with stress, we have to acknowledge that it exists, both good and bad. And then we need to create a plan to put the big rocks of our life in it and go through that. And I break it down, as you know, paramilitary guy, love structure. It lets me relax. I know what I'm going to do for the week. And then I really try to book everything out, whether it be with my family and my friends, whether it be with occupation, work, whether it be with my recreation, whether it be with my motivation, my education, things like that. I put those rocks in at least one thing every week in each of these areas. And as we know, you can't work one day a week, but the point is there's an outcome, a result that I want, and I'm clearly defining my reason why I want it. Then, as you're alluding to, let's lay out those routines and schedule them, those actions that can be done.
Yeah, 100%. And just to break down them, kind of the bigger picture into very specific things, what I did when I was 27 years old is I kind of thought this through about what I really wanted to accomplish on a week-by-week basis. And what I came up with was just I'm really living life in a series of roles. So I'm a business person. I've got a business, right? That's a role that I have. But I'm also a husband. I'm also a father. I'm an uncle. I'm a friend, right? I'm a spiritual person. I'm an athlete. So I have these roles that I play during this week, or I could play, right? I don't have to be an uncle this week, but I could be an uncle this week. So thinking of it from the 4 pillars of health perspective, which is to achieve, excellence in our lives, to be the best we can be. What can I do this week to be an excellent uncle? What can I do this week to be an excellent brother? So that's really the way I think about my life on a weekly basis. And that challenges me to be creative. It challenges me to be innovative. It challenges me to put time aside for these things. So as an example, I date my wife once a week. Again, number of hours in a week, and I'm going to spend time with my wife. She's my wife, man. Why wouldn't I be dating my wife? So that's 4 hours on a Friday, probably. Dinner, movie, walk, bike ride, golf, whatever it is, each and every Friday, and then something on Saturday and something on Sunday. Just nice. Special time with me and my wife. I got to be creative, innovative, and you know what? That takes away all the stress, or most of the stress.
Exactly.
With a wife.
I love what you're saying, Bob, because the plan itself is the stress relief solution, right? And I think it's really critical that we just are able to acknowledge, right? And I experience it as well in my relationships. If we don't put time in, it's not if. Eventually, you get the destructive stress instead of the productive and growth oriented stress, which is good in the relationship, right? Likewise with our health. I can relieve stress by cutting out my workout because I just don't have time, or I don't have time to eat, just grab a chocolate bar, or I don't have time to actually take a break and rest.
And let me share where people fail from this. Like where I should say where I failed as a much younger person. I failed and failed and failed.
Yeah.
And I've learned this over the years is like I used to run. And at a time where I used to run, it was to be like I wanted to run a half marathon. And so that's the thought that I had in my head was I'm going to run a half marathon. And that works at certain times. But many people say, I'm going to become a runner too. I'm going to run a half marathon. That's not the best way to create a new habit. The best way to create a new habit is to say, you know, I'd like to run a half marathon one day. But in terms of this week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my running shoes on 3 times. So the key to getting fit and learning how to run is just to take that one small step and make that promise to yourself and make it as simple as possible. So, so rather than go out for a 6K run on a Tuesday, mark it in your calendar that you're going to put your running shoes on at 2:00. And once you get to the door, put your running shoes on and tie them up. You'll go for the run. But
I love it.
It's your brain stops you because you start to, it's 6K. It's going to be so hard. Oh my gosh, it's raining out. I don't want to go for your brain because that powerful reptilian brain wants you to survive. It wants you to sit on the couch and eat chips. Your brain will argue for you to sit on the couch and eat chips and have a Coke rather than go for the run because of it's 6K, it's uphill, it's raining out. Your brain will do that to you.
And we want to move from the pain to the pleasure, right? Unfortunately, there is no gain without a little bit of pain. We just got to pace it properly. I really like what you said. You know, KISS, the acronym for Keep It Simple, Stupid, is true. However, I like the new one that we created. And that's create intentionally simple systems and solutions, right? And that way it's progressively growing. You're giving yourself that progress, which is fulfillment. And we all are driven by how we feel in life. You know, that's the only way you can transform a belief is by getting positive results from it. And then that builds your potential. And we grow through these little steps, as you just said so well.
So if you want to get strong, you're diabetic and you want to get strong, right?
Yeah.
You know, you go to the gym. Right? You got a gym membership, you go to the gym, you work hard. You've learned that over the years, but lots of listeners right now and viewers right now, it's like, I don't want to go to the gym. You don't have to do that.
No.
You brush your teeth twice a day. Just make yourself a promise. Every time you brush your teeth in the morning, you're going to do 1 push-up.
Yep.
So brush your teeth, do a push-up. So simple. You know what will happen is if you make that a habit, you'll go to 2 push-ups. And then you'll be at 5 push-ups. You brush your teeth and virtually you'll be doing 10 push-ups.
That's right.
And then you'll start thinking, geez, you know, I can do more. I'm going to brush my teeth, do 10 push-ups, and get out my yoga mat.
How many push-ups you doing, Bob?
I can do 50.
That's amazing. You rock. That's the truth, though. These little baby steps, right? So thanks. This is a good share, man. I really appreciate that for our viewers. And as diabetics, I think we use a lot of excuses in life to not do something because of our condition. And these are actually all valid reasons again, right? Fatigue is a big one, right? My sugars are out of balance. I don't want to take the risk of having a low or whatever it might be. But the truth is, if we're not willing to step forward and risk failure, we're not going to learn the routines and the processes to be able to do more. So I'd like us to just kind of, as we wrap up the hour, I'd like to talk a little bit about the 4 pillars and the one thing that we could do in each of them with your habits and the way we could do small things. What's one thing that you and I each think could be done for people to consider to implement into their life that will reduce stress, help bring control into their life, especially as diabetics. It'll really drive an impact on your sugars and your overall feeling that you're making progress. So Bob, you go, I'll go. Pillar one, what's the number one thing that we can do?
Okay, that's a good one, brother. That's a really good one. Listen, the average Canadian man spends about $2,500 on his head every year. If you add it up, the shaving cream, the shampoo, facial toners, about $2,500. The average woman spends over $3,000 on her face and her head every year. Probably many spend more of that. But the average Canadian only spends $25 a year on books. So the number one thing you can do is buy a book a month. You need to buy a book a month. And what happens is you put that book in the bathroom and then you read it. And I'm talking about books that help you, right? Things that you're interested in. So all you have to do is, if you're a diabetic, pick up a book on, search on Amazon, order your book. You make the mental note, the intentional note that you're going to buy a book a month. $20 times over $250 a year. But don't do that. But just buy a book this month and put it in the bathroom. And then don't try to read the book cover to cover. You might want to, but most people don't. Just read a line a day. You go to the bathroom 3 times a day, right?
Yep.
And
well
if you
said.
brush your teeth and shower, you might be in there 4 or 5 times. There's the book, man. Just flip open the book, read a line. You'll end up reading the paragraph. You might read the page, put it down. And every time you open a book, you're going to get a new idea, and that new idea is going to lead to something else.
Love it. Love it. I'm a little annoyed though you took mine. So yeah, it's so true. It's so powerful, right? Because you're putting yourself into proximity to new ideas. And when we do that, we grow. We're giving ourselves opportunity. And I get just wound up by that, because everything in our life is learned. Everything other than the fear of heights and falling. That's it. Everything you know in life has been learned from someone else. So reading is one. But I think the other that you've said is so clear from this is to plan. Literally, to help your mindset to reduce stress is just write out 2 things.
Phone, man.
Use notes, use your calendar, but use your calendar as a to-do list and write out what your 3 or 4 things are that you want to accomplish by the end of the week. Because what happens is you speak it into existence, and immediately your focus goes on it, and where focus goes, energy flows. And it's amazingly powerful. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to add a little bit to that. Get up early. I'm not talking about jumping to 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. I'm talking about get up a little bit earlier. The science shows our brain is in theta. When we wake up is the best time to learn things new and to have your most creative moments. And if you give yourself time to read, to meditate, pray, to do things that are going to help your soul, your spirit, you're going to grow. You will feel less stress. Pillar 2, Bob. Let's keep moving. Pillar 2, what are you going to do for food and nutrition?
You buy yourself a $20 water bottle.
Nice.
Listen, most people don't drink enough water during the day, and the water is the key to energy and health. You got to drink enough water. And what happens is if you're just going to remind yourself to fill up your water jug, it's not special enough. You have to have an isolated water jug where you can look at it and realize it's empty. So you have to fill it. So that's what happens. You buy yourself a nice water thing, and you look at it and you go, hey, that needs to be consumed. And then you consume it, and then you see it's empty. So you fill it again. And then you take it everywhere you go. You just
love it.
It's part of your life.
Love it. So for me, I would say shopping. When you're shopping at the grocery store, try not to go down the aisles. Try to only purchase your food around the outside of the store. That's fruits and vegetables, that's meats, that's dairy, that is your breads, etc. But really try to eat whole foods. And first and foremost, if you're snacking, and I'm not saying don't eat ice cream, I'm not saying Don't. I'm saying do eat more dark greens. Do eat organic, in my opinion, but clean food. That would be the thing. Put in the premium fuel for your body. It will make a difference. Water and clean food. Pillar 3, we basically touched. Let's be fast on it. What's the one thing?
Find an activity that you like to do that gets you up and moving. So let's take yoga and then plan not to do the yoga class, but just put the yoga mat out. When the process of putting the yoga mat out will have you do the yoga class or go for a walk. And the most important thing is you have to plug it in your phone. So plug it in your phone. Oh, Heath, only 15% of people use the phones to actually plan their life, their calendar.
I know. Most of it's just social media.
You look at most people's phones is just blank.
Yeah.
Or just full of work stuff. And there's no development on the 4 pillars for themselves.
Right on. Well, we're going to change that. So here we go. Pillar 3 for me is that try to make it a net time. And what I mean by that is do it with somebody if you can, or at least be in proximity to people if you can. Because in these times, you need social interaction. So go for a walk with your wife and make that a net time. Go with your child. Do the gym workout so you're around people. Try to do something that lets you connect, right? Because social interaction, not through the phone, is a critical element. And I love it walking with my wife. I love playing golf with the guys. I really, even though I may go to the gym and I'm listening sometimes for my education stuff, because that's I'm always putting in, the real truth, I like competing, and it charges me up to see those young guns go, oh, I can do that still. And it drives me. So pillar 4, probably the most missed of all, which I missed the most in my younger years, is the energy, rest and recovery.
Yeah. And we have a culture, North Americans have a culture, Western civilization has a culture of work hard. You get up in the morning, you work all day long, and then at some time you go to bed or something like that. There's nothing cultural built into our societies for us to rest. I mean, I think the Mexicans have siesta, right? So
the old man.
Europeans have a 2-hour lunch. A lot of organizations and companies have a 2-hour lunch, but we don't have anything like that here, and we should, because it's very healthy. So I plan every day to have at least a half an hour in the afternoon where I can just put my feet up, relax, and rest. And a lot of us are working during those hours, but most people can organize their days to have some quiet time where they can just meditate or have a short nod off, or just get into a relaxed position and let their minds and bodies recover. Because go the whole day long is a recipe for not resting.
Yes. The hustle is the biggest lie that goes on in modern social media today, that they say, go without sleep. You're not working hard if you're not doing only 3 hours of sleep. It's the number one lie, and it will lead you to diabetes, right? Because I did it. What I would recommend is my one thing: set a bedtime. Get 7 hours of sleep. If you do that, your body will really have the opportunity to heal, to recover, for your mind to rest. That would be my goal, which I do, but it would transform my life. And I can talk for hours on this, but the point is this: one other addition. Every hour, use your iPhone. Do 1 minute of deep breathing every hour. That's it. Try it. I guarantee it'll rock your world what deep breathing will do for you. So we've gone through the 4 pillars. We've given you one of Bob's and one of Heath's one things that we would do for it. So to conclude today on how do we manage stress, we've just kind of fire hosed a whole bunch of things about stress, about fear, about a whole bunch of things, Bob. But how would you close it up before I wrap it up?
Take a tiny step on any of your stress. If you're having an argument with a person you love, take a tiny step in towards fixing that. If you are having financial challenges, don't try to fix the financial challenges right away. It's not about that. It's about taking a step towards fixing the financial challenges, something positive that moves you in a good direction. It's about little tiny steps towards potential solutions, and you'll find your way. One step followed by another step, followed by another step, and you're on top of the mountain.
Yeah, that's so well said. I can't thank you enough for today, Bob. So I think that for me, I think it's really important to realize that it happens. And you may be thinking right now, it's easy for you to say, Heath and Bob, you don't realize that I've tried everything. Well, I know that you have not tried everything because I know we can always try and do one more thing. And if you haven't journeyed with me and Bob or our UD community, then you have not tried everything. So I want to encourage you to try one more thing and join me and try our completely free live workshop called the Uncommon Diabetic Workshop, where I'm going to introduce you to this revolutionary and science-based approach towards your diabetic health. It's only 90 minutes long. And after that, I'm going to stay with you for a live Q&A session where I'm going to answer all of your questions related to the topic. I promise you, after this workshop, you'll get all the tools and knowledge you need to radically transform how you feel. It'll increase your energy for the things that you love to do. You're going to lose weight. You're going to be able to have the performance that you used to have. Ultimately, live a healthier and happier life, regardless of your current condition. But here's the bad news. We only have available time this Thursday at 7 p.m. And as it's a Zoom workshop, we have limited spots available. So only 100 people will be able to attend the workshop. So all you have to do is register now and click the link below and put your name and your email into the form so that we can get back to you and remind you about the workshop. I can't wait to meet you. So once I do meet you Thursday, then and only then can you say that you have tried almost everything. I know you won't be disappointed, and I know that together we can live an uncommon diabetic life. So click the link below, or you can come visit us at uncommondiabetic.com and register there. Plus, you can also check out all our other free offers. So Bob, I really want to thank you for today. I want to thank all of you for watching and joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you soon. And until then, be uncommon.
Thanks, Heath.
Thank you, Bob.